This is CBC Winnipeg News.
No family, no person should go through what we went through.
It's been a difficult 24 hours filled with mixed emotions for the families of two murdered Indigenous women, nearly 3 months after the landfill search first got underway. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. The search for the remains of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron took a turn yesterday after on-site experts believe they found possible human remains within landfill debris. It's news the families have longed to hear for years, but say they never should have been forced to fight for it. CBC's Josh Crabb has more.
More than 2 years after calls first began to search Prairie Green landfill, crews looking for murder victims Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron located possible human remains. Family members of the two women say this discovery Wednesday morning, just a couple months into the search, came earlier than they expected.
All I could think about is I want my mom. No one should go through any type of heartbreak without their mom.
Harris's daughter Elle, cousin Melissa Robinson, and Myron's sister Jordan say there was no way to prepare. The province announced remains were found and says both the RCMP and Office of the Chief Medical Examiner are involved. The Mounties are on site and work to identify the remains is underway.
We knew those women were in there, and this is the day that we've been waiting for.
When family members found out, they went to the landfill to grieve and reflect on their fight for a search.
When the Winnipeg police told us no. You know, when the government, Heather Stephenson, told us no. You know, that couldn't be done and that it wouldn't be done. You know what, to hell with all you guys, because it got done.
A serial killer was convicted this past July of 4 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of Harris, Myron, Rebecca Contois, and an unidentified woman given the name Mushkade Bishake Ikwe Ibon. Harris and Myron were killed in May 2022, left in a dumpster, picked up by a garbage truck, and taken to the landfill. Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew says identifying the remains found could take at least a couple of weeks.
Again, there's a lot of uncertainty right now. We have to wait for this identification process to play out.
The work at the landfill will continue after it was paused to let families grieve. Teams of searchers and forensic anthropologists have been working in a covered facility, combing through debris excavated from the site. They've been looking for clues, such as dates on milk cartons and flyers.
We have family members that are doing this search every single day. And you know, it's tough work.
Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs Grand Chief Kyra Wilson credited her predecessor, the late Kathy Merrick, who fought hard for this search, and the families. She says this latest development is a testament to their strength. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Manitoba has become the first province to sign a pharmacare agreement with the federal government. It means universal coverage for diabetes medication and birth control, among other things. But whether Ottawa delivers on this promise may depend on the upcoming federal election. The CBC's Ian Fraze reports.
Federal Health Minister Mark Holland says a pharmacare deal like this is a start.
There will be a day, and make no question about it, when every Canadian in every part of our country has access to the medication they need.
That day got closer for some Manitobans. The province became the first to reach a pharmacare agreement with the feds. Since Manitoba already covers contraceptives, Ottawa is funding diabetes medications, devices, and supplies.
How sick are doctors of having a patient in front of them to say, this is the medication you need to take. This is how you're going to manage this kind of condition of type 1 or type 2 diabetes. And the person looks back at them and says, I can't afford that.
The 4-year, $267 million agreement also covers hormone replacement therapy for those on menopause.
It is something that is significant and really, quite frankly, life-changing.
The new pharmacare program should kick off in June, but a federal election, likely in the spring, could risk it.
So it's up to the Conservatives, not me, to explain why they would cut this.
Holland says the feds are rushing to implement the program, but they'll do it correctly.
The reality is that there are restraints. There's restraints on money. There are restraints on the ability to deliver. But look, as fast we can go, we'll go.
The Conservatives say in a statement that national pharmacare will jeopardize coverage for people using their workplace benefits. If elected, the Tories say they'll work with provinces to improve access to prescription drugs. Ian Fraze, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Manitoba's latest plan to reduce homelessness has seen the project's first person moved from an encampment into housing. The person was last moved last week, according to Tessa Blakey-Whitecloud, who's overseeing the project. She says the person had been in and out of encampments and shelters for quite a while and was staying on their own in a camp. The province has promised to eliminate chronic homelessness in the next 7 years. Blakey-Whitecloud says even though this is just one person housed, she sees it as progress.
Somebody's life has changed fundamentally, and that happens one person at a time, one relationship at a time, one family at a time, one encampment at a time. And so it looks different. All of the work needs to be person-centered. All of the work needs to be about how do we respond to that person's need.
She says right now there are a handful of social housing units available. Manitoba Hydro wants to spend $1.4 billion on a new fuel-burning generating station. Hydro needs the station soon to prevent Manitoba from running out of power during the winter. But as CBC's Bartley Kivas reports, this station might run on something the NDP has promised to phase out.
Manitoba Hydro's Brandon Station is the only electricity source in Hydro's arsenal that burns natural gas. It's only supposed to operate on demand, usually during cold snaps, but also during droughts when water levels on Lake Winnipeg are low. Now, Manitoba Hydro says it needs even more power on demand. It wants to spend $1.36 billion to build a pair of 250 megawatt fuel combustion turbines by the end of 2029 to avoid what it calls sustained winter peak capacity deficits.
Our winter peak load capacities are getting higher and higher, and we've already estimated that we're probably going to need more capacity in order to meet those winter peak loads by 2029, 2030.
Hydro hasn't decided on a source of fuel for this plant. The cheapest option is natural gas.
You want to have, on the one hand, the lowest cost resource available, and yet not rule out some of the latest technologies.
Gas poses a problem for the NDP government. It's promised to phase out natural gas as a fuel source by 2035.
Our government certainly supports the work of decarbonizing wherever possible. But again, this is focused right now on ensuring that we meet our energy needs here in Manitoba, that we keep energy as affordable as possible.
Other fuel options include renewable natural gas, which comes from the likes of compost or sewage treatment. Hydrogen is also on the table. Both of these fuels are more expensive. PC critic Lauren Stone urges Hydro to stick with natural gas.
I'm calling on the NDP to put aside their ideological decisions and ensure that the lowest cost option and most reliable option is available to Manitobans as we need to expand our energy capacity here in the province.
Manitoba may not have a choice. Hydrogen is difficult to store, and there's no local source of renewable natural gas. One Toronto environmental activist says Manitoba should stick with wind, solar, and water power.
You've got one gas plant. Keep that one around in case of an emergency. But the goal should be to take your very best effort at trying to fully decarbonize the grid.
Manitoba Hydro plans to decide on a fuel source for the plant next year and get construction going as soon as possible to prevent the possibility of leaving Manitobans in the dark as soon as 5 winters from now. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Riley Lachuk in now. Riley, it's been nice to see people walking into the newsroom with lighter layers of clothes. You see our reporters that are out there doing their lives and their look lives and their stand-ups in light jackets, no toques, no scarves, no mitts.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Not returning to that, but more return to more seasonal weather. I mean, not a return to the minus 30s and the heavy coats, but certainly we are looking at some cooler conditions as we head through the next couple of days. Thanks in part to an area of low pressure that has prompted these snowfall warnings from Flin Flon right through the northern Interlake down into northwestern Ontario. On the Manitoba side, at least, looking at up to 15 centimeters by the time we get to Friday. But locally into parts of northwestern Ontario, we could see up to 25 centimeters of snow by the time we get into the the afternoon hours on Friday. We don't have radar coverage this far north, but the snow that you see in the Northern Interlake does expand north into places like Grand Rapids, into Norway House, and this is all making its way southeast. So we are looking at the potential, at least here in Winnipeg, even I think of a few flurries or some rain showers even overnight tonight. We're looking at our temperature actually rising to +3 by the time we get to the overnight hours. Very windy as well. Northwest winds gusting up to 80. That temperature dropping to -8 by the morning and staying right around there as we get into the afternoon hours. Brittany will break this all down and have a return to more seasonal conditions when I come back.
It had to happen. Thanks, Riley.
You're welcome.
Winnipeg's mayor says a committee meant to advance reconciliation needs help. Why he says it's time for an overhaul. Plus more from City Hall. Straight ahead, you're watching CBC Winnipeg News. A volunteer city committee tasked with giving advice on place names could get an overhaul. The city created the Welcoming Winnipeg Committee to ensure Indigenous history and people are reflected. But today, Mayor Scott Gillingham says the committee lacks clear direction. CBC's Cameron McLean joins us now with the latest from City Hall. So, Cameron, what's the mayor calling for regarding Welcoming Winnipeg?
Well, the mayor says he supports the committee and wants them to continue, but he says there have been problems since the city adopted the Welcoming Winnipeg policy in 2020. The committee advises the city on names and renaming. They recently helped with changing the name of Bishop Grandin Boulevard to Abenoji Mikana, but the committee members have expressed frustration. Council would sometimes reject recommendations without explanation. Gillingham says they lack resources to deal with the volume of requests they receive, and some of the work they're given falls outside of what council intended the committee to be.
To recognize the importance of Indigenous places and names, but on the other point, still have opportunity to recognize other places, or pardon me, other names in our city, in a city that is increasingly diverse.
Gillingham put forward a motion calling for a review of the policy. That will be debated at council next month.
So, Cameron, what do others say about the problems that are facing this committee?
Well, the mayor's office hired a consultant to interview members of the committee and city staff. The consultant's report calls for more resources and clarity around the role of the committee. Councillor Sherry Rowlands advocated for greater funding.
It is reasonable, I think, that they would have a reasonable work plan as a volunteer. And I think it is reasonable that if there are a great many ambitions, that that work plan be accompanied by a budget. And so
if the motion's approved, council or city staff will have 4 months to review and make recommendations.
Okay, Cameron, council also voted on a plan involving the Granite Curling Club. What happened there?
Well, council approved the subdivision and rezoning of the parking lot on the west side of the building. The city wants to build affordable housing on the lot, but club board members have opposed the plan, saying the loss of parking would cost the members and revenue. Today, council passed a motion requiring city staff to work out a plan to address parking and support the sustainability of the club. Brittany?
All right, thank you, Cameron. That's CBC's Cameron McLean tonight. A pedestrian scramble could soon be coming to the Exchange District. The city's Public Works Committee will vote next week on a pilot project to test one at the corner of King Street and Bannatyne Avenue. It would allow pedestrians to cross simultaneously in all 4 directions. Advocates say it improves safety and reduces delays. Some designs allow people to cross diagonally, but Public Works Chair Janice Luke says that option would require modifications to the intersection. If approved, the pilot project would begin this year with a report expected in spring 2026. A downtown aging health clinic is getting a much-needed funding boost after the federal government commits $10 million to help with renovations. The Women's Health Clinic has been in dire need of repairs for years. It comes after it was forced to close last week after dealing with heating problems, bursting pipes, and falling ceiling tiles. This was the second closure in under a year due to infrastructure problems. This investment will support critical upgrades to the building's aging mechanical, electrical, and elevator systems.
This has been an ongoing challenge for us. We've known that we've needed to redevelop this space to be able to deliver the programs that we do to so many people every single day, that without us, I don't know where they would go.
Executive Director estimates renovations will be upwards of $20 million. It's also asking the province to commit funds. The Graham Avenue building provides health and wellness care for women, girls, and gender diverse people. The homicide unit is investigating the death of a 35-year-old man on Magnus Avenue earlier this week. Police say they were called to a home in the 500 block on Tuesday for a well-being call. They found a man who was deceased inside the house. He's been identified as Matthew Robert Peltier. An autopsy will be done. It's the 3rd homicide in the William White area in the past 2 weeks. Buffy St. Marie has been scrubbed out of an exhibit at the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. It comes after questions surrounding the folk singer and activist claim of First Nations identity. The CMHR says it removed a profile of her from an exhibit dedicated to human rights defenders. The museum says it happened in December following consultations with advisors, colleagues, and elders. The decision comes more than a year after an investigation by CBC's The Fifth Estate raised questions about St. Marie's claims of Indigenous ancestry. At the time, her lawyer told CBC she has never misrepresented her ancestry. CBC has reached out to the singer about the museum's decision, but has yet to receive a response. Riley's back in now. Riley, some people really loving these warmer temperatures. I know some people really love those slightly colder temperatures to be able to get out there and skate and do all those winter activities.
I mean, the trade-off with these warmer temperatures is we've seen this parade of systems through parts of northern Manitoba. It hasn't been as bright. It's been a little bit more unsettled, and this is what we can look forward to as we get into the long range even, is a little bit more unsettled weather, but the trade-off being temperatures remaining above seasonal into the next week and beyond. So we'll start with Futurecast here because I want to show you the extent of this area of low pressure as it makes its way into Manitoba. So the low itself still back into Saskatchewan, but you can see how far south already some of the snow has started to spread as it makes its way along that jet stream track right into northwestern Ontario. As we get through the overnight hours tonight, you can start to see that shifting a little bit further south. So by the later evening, I think we can expect some periods of rain or some periods of light snow here in Winnipeg, really temperature dependent because we are looking at temperatures starting to rise as we get overnight before sharply dropping into the morning hours. So you can see by midnight periods of snow or some periods of rain in Winnipeg, but certainly back into northwestern Ontario as that low pushes through. Some pretty considerable accumulation picking up as it kind of picks up steam along the jet stream here. Behind that, a cold front pushes through, and this will do two things: really sharply drop our temperatures into the morning hours tomorrow, but also very strong winds developing in behind this as well. So travel, particularly north of the city and east into northwestern Ontario, looking at the potential, at least for some very icy conditions tomorrow, thinking even the perimeter highway, just think that we're looking at temperatures rising and then sharply dropping. So that's going to create some icy highways, some icy sidewalks into the morning hours tomorrow. Behind that, though, some clearing as we get into the overnight hours Friday into Saturday. Mainly sunny skies thanks to high pressure on Saturday, but we will start to build in a bit of cloud cover as we get into the day on Sunday ahead of a little bit more snow yet to come for parts of northern Manitoba into next week. So this takes us out through the next 48 hours, looking at the potential at least for another 15 to 20 centimeters for places like Grand Rapids, into Eastman, and certainly into northwestern Ontario, where we could see even up to 25 centimeters of snow. The story for most of southern Manitoba, though, definitely will be the winds as we get into the overnight hours. You can see these blue colors here picking up winds gusting up to 70 kilometers an hour plus. Into the overnight hours, those do start to drop off, but tomorrow is a breezy day as we get through the afternoon hours. Tomorrow, even looking at north winds gusting up to 40. Temperature drops to -8 by the morning in Winnipeg tomorrow, -12 in Brandon, and some of that colder air into northern Manitoba. And the cold air does stick around for the next couple of days. So -7 Brittany for Saturday, then we're back up above seasonal as we get into Sunday, and there's that next chance of flurries as we get into early next week.
All right, thanks so much, Riley.
You're welcome.
We have more to come right after this. Stay with us. A Canadian delegation is in Washington in the latest push to avert Donald Trump's threats of tariffs. The Public Safety Minister and Canada's newly appointed fentanyl czar are there to promote the country's fight against drug trafficking. Cameron McIntosh reports.
Public Safety Minister David McGuinty leading a delegation of Canadian officials in Washington, including the heads of the RCMP and Canada Border Services Agency, along with newly appointed fentanyl czar Kevin Brosseau, trying to head off President Trump's threats to impose sweeping tariffs of 25% on almost all Canadian imports set for next Tuesday. Trump has tied the tariffs to border security, in particular fentanyl, which he insists is a problem coming in from Canada. The heads of the RCMP and CBSA both meeting with U.S. officials to highlight recent fentanyl and drug crackdowns, including a month-long RCMP initiative that led to seizures of more than 16,000 pills and more than 500 arrests. McGuinty insisting when it comes to drugs, Canada is succeeding in strengthening its border.
The evidence is irrefutable. The progress is being made. In my view, any test that was put on this country, on Canada, in terms of showing progress and meeting standards for the border, I believe those have been met.
Now, even before the delegation got to the White House, Trump posted the March 4th tariffs will go ahead unless fentanyl is, quote, stopped or seriously limited. Only about 1% of American fentanyl comes through Canada. Trump originally threatened to impose the tariffs earlier this month. Canada got an extension. Trump has said getting another one will be, quote, hard. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Washington.
A possible trade war between Canada and the U.S. has some physicians in the province concerned about the impact it may have on health care. Doctors Manitoba says it means funding cuts to essential services as prices for vital medical supplies go up. The group says things like gloves, disinfectant, and medical dressings are part of a long list of products that come largely from the U.S. With the possibility of Canadian retaliatory tariffs, those supplies could cost 25% more.
We still are dealing with a budget. The hospital and the system still has to pay for that. So it still comes within that envelope. And so how does that work? It's not an unlimited budget.
With the U.S. set to impose tariffs starting March 4th, the association is bracing for impact. They say they're trying to find ways to source medical supplies made here in Canada. Now, Trump's shifting goalposts and deadlines have made planning for potential tariffs difficult. Many Canadian grain farmers are trying to head off the threat by selling their products to American buyers fast. Anis Hadari hits the road to the U.S. for a closer look.
These small ports are now 9 to 5.
It's an early start to the day at Landon Friesen's grain farm, beginning with paperwork to get wheat across the U.S. border. He's making that trip more often this winter, trying to get all of his grain to American buyers before a possible tariff hits.
Why is there a rush to get all this grain delivered before March the 4th? The grain's not going anywhere, right? It's not like it'll go bad.
Correct. The grain won't go bad, but our markets are going to close down, or the tariff will hurt the markets, and that's what we're racing against the time.
Canada exports a lot of wheat to the U.S., $1 billion worth in 2023. A 25% tariff could lower American demand, which would lower the price farmers get. That's why farmers like Friesen are rushing before tariffs.
I guess we're coming up here, so...
Yeah, you guys got your passports?
And if it gets harder to ship to the U.S., there's trouble for everyone. It can cost money to change where and who you sell to.
The fact is that the diversification and all of the impacts are going to raise costs of doing businesses for Canadian businesses, and that's going to have an impact for Canadian consumers.
Whatever the impact, farmers like Landon Friesen are just getting their work done for now.
I gotta say, you sound very relaxed for someone whose business might take a 25% hit.
It will hurt industry in Canada. Could cause our exchange rate to really go sideways, or it's going to hurt us at the grocery store maybe. But that's how tariffs work, right? They affect often the consumers, and that's probably what it'll do.
But he also says he's got a lot of time for Americans.
I mean, these are neighbors to the south. We've done life with them, right? We don't have a big border wall. There's always been a lot of respect for each other, I think. We all need to get along. We can't pick up and move.
All he can do for now is keep moving grain. Anis Haidari, CBC News, near Crystal City, Manitoba.
The Trump administration has worked out deals with places like Panama to send many deportees outside the U.S. But the conditions in one of those detention camps only recently came to light. CBC News has learned that hundreds of migrants locked in that hotel for 2 weeks have now been removed. Melissa Kent reports.
Men, women, and children are loaded onto 2 buses outside the Decapolis Hotel in the heart of Panama City. It's not clear where they're being taken. Earlier this week, clothes were hanging in several of the hotel's windows. Some people stood for hours looking out, some with signs asking for help. These are the last of the nearly 300 migrants from Asia, the Middle East, and Africa deported by the U.S. on military planes to Panama and locked inside this hotel for almost 2 weeks, surrounded by tight security with limited contact to the outside world. Panama says they're here as part of an agreement with the U.S. We haven't said they are deprived of their liberty, says Frank Abrego, Panama's public security minister. They are in our custody for their protection. He also says they're free to return to their country of origin. But those unwilling or unable to go back to their country of origin, nearly 100 migrants, have been sent to a remote facility in the Darien Jungle region along Panama's border with Colombia. They'll be held there until another country is willing to take them in. Melissa Kent for CBC News, Panama City.
The number of Canadians falling behind on their mortgage payments is on the rise as the strain of the steep cost of living hits household budgets. The trend is hitting some provinces harder than others. Nisha Patel explains.
Are you kidding me?
Struggling with steep mortgage payments on their Toronto home, Sonia Sharma and her husband put the house up for rent and moved to Montreal.
Everything became so expensive for us that we had to actually look for a better cost of living place.
But they're still on the hook for $2,000 a month and may soon face a tough choice.
All in all, we don't want to, but we may have to think of selling the house.
While they're managing to hold on to the property for now, other mortgage holders may not be as lucky. In Ontario, the mortgage delinquency rate has jumped 90% in the past year. That's where a homeowner hasn't made a payment for at least 3 months. It's also climbed about 40% in BC and Quebec.
Those high interest rates that we've had for quite some time, although they are starting to come down now, that's still creating some additional stress.
The Bank of Canada has cut the key interest rate to 3%. Still, for more than 1 million fixed-rate mortgages that are coming up for renewal this year, that's much higher than when the loans were first signed.
You already have this widening gap, and is that going to get worse?
Some mortgage agents are urging clients to shop around and evaluate options like stretching amortization.
This is a moment to review, not put our head in the sand, and just plan, budget, know what's coming your way.
That's especially crucial as unemployment in Canada has been on the rise, and the risks of U.S. tariffs could weigh on the economy. Sharma says that keeps her up at night.
Now we have some people in our circle, we personally know them who are laid off, so it could be me tomorrow, it could be my husband, could be anyone.
For now, she's cutting costs, preparing to face any uncertainties in the months ahead. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
Doctors across the country say they're drowning in paperwork and administrative tasks. They say it's time that could be better spent with patients. Heather Gillis reports.
A minor contagious illness lasting a few days. Doctors don't want to write sick notes for that, excusing people from work or school. They're calling for them to be eliminated.
Come on, people. These are grown-ups, and if they have a cold and they are spewing germs and they're making a good call to stay home from work, they don't need to bring those germs into my office to get a note so that you can feel better about them not coming to work.
The Canadian Medical Association estimates doctors wrote 12.5 million sick notes last year. An estimated 6.5 million Canadians don't have access to primary care, and doctors say critically examining the amount of paperwork could be one small step to curing the healthcare crisis. Some provinces are making moves to curb sick notes. In Nova Scotia, employers can't demand them unless a person's been ill for more than 5 consecutive days. In Ontario and Quebec, 3 days. And that's not the only red tape keeping doctors from more patient time.
I mean, in an average week, I'm probably spending 4 to 8 hours doing paperwork, and that's between forms. So basically, forms that are disability forms, disability tax credit forms, Canada pension forms, lawyers' reports.
After putting in a full day, you're up till 10 o'clock at night finishing paperwork. People are answering.
This healthcare researcher says electronic medical records are one thing, counterintuitively increasing the administrative burden, and they could be streamlined.
You might get a PDF from a lab with lab results, but then you got to open it, click it, save it to the right patient. So, there's all these additional steps. It's not automated.
Manitoba and Nova Scotia have struck task forces to reduce doctor red tape. Quebec has passed legislation to reduce it, and many doctors say it's just a start. Heather Gillis, CBC News, St. John's.
While many Manitobans have been happier to see the warmer temperatures, it comes at an impact to others who say they're struggling. We'll explain more on that straight ahead. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. Stay with us.
Hey Winnipeg, the CBC Kids News Contributor Search is on, so get ready to shine.
We're looking for new talent to join our team, and we're coming to your city.
If you're the parent of a 9 to 15-year-old who loves making videos and is an amazing storyteller,
come meet our hiring producers at CF Polo Park on Saturday, March 1st from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m.
To learn more, head over to cbckidsnews.ca/Winnipeg.
Who knows? This could be the start of something great.
Northern Manitoba's largest urban centre is looking to diversify and rebrand. Thompson wants to shift the perception away that it's just a mining town and want people to see it not only as a northern hub, but a tourism hotspot. CBC's Sanuda Ranawake has more.
When people think of Thompson, many think of mining. But skiing and camping could get more attention. That's what business leaders, politicians, and experts are talking about at this Linkages conference. Colleen Smook is Thompson's mayor and says everything is on the table, from tourism to building homes.
We've talked, with different people, whether it even be building modular homes to go out to the different communities. Because, right now you get homes that are built down south. It's not understood what they even need to be done for winter and for longevity up here.
Smook knows mining is important, but she wants Thompson to expand hospitals and schools. Ashley Dunlop with Economic Development Winnipeg matches job seekers with employers. Her team visited the Linkages conference to find out what industries are growing.
This is a big town. There's a hospital, there's an airport, there is, UCN. All of those things need staff. All of those staff need places to live. All of those staff need something to do on the weekend. All of those staff need someone to sell them a car or fix their snowmobile.
Eric Termendi came all the way from BC to speak here. He's a leadership consultant for many rural communities in the country. He thinks Thompson can learn from Churchill.
Technology is the easy one. I find tourism is another opportunity. I think Churchill's done an incredible job from branding themselves on a global stage as a tourism opportunity and tourism destination.
Tourism in Thompson has been on the rise, according to the mayor. The region is tapping into its unique culture and pristine wilderness. The conference hopes it will become a destination for adventure. Sanuda Ranawake, CBC News, Thompson.
Well, if you've walked outside in recent days, you've probably noticed more slush and patches of ice all over the city's sidewalks. The quick melt from warming temperatures combined with overnight dips have made for slick surfaces. The city's snow removal policy doesn't deal with the ice the same way it does snow. But one disability advocate says it's time to update that policy. CBC's Mike Arsenault has the details.
It's very treacherous.
Slow and steady. That's how Mary Jane Anderson walks to the grocery store so she doesn't wipe out on the ice lining the sidewalks.
Well, they're very slippery. There's no sand on it that I can see. And I don't walk out. Just walk from here to Safeway.
Winnipeg's had a warm snap of weather recently, leading to ice and slush on sidewalks and streets. The hazard is a greater concern for people with mobility issues, which is why the Manitoba League of Persons with Disabilities introduced their Snowplow campaign. The campaign encourages Winnipeggers to share pictures of snow barriers and uncleared sidewalks.
The idea is really to start up a conversation about keeping our city sidewalks clear of snow and drawing attention to when they might not be properly cleared.
Melissa Graham, who uses a wheelchair, thinks the city should update its snow clearing policies to keep up with the mid-season thaws that are becoming more frequent.
It's nice that we have this nice warm weather right now, but eventually that will probably freeze up again on us. And when it does, it's going to create some really hazardous conditions in our sidewalk.
Michael Cantor manages street maintenance for the city of Winnipeg. He says there was less compacted snow this year, and the swing in temperatures didn't create as much ice on the sidewalks compared to years prior. But the city's policy on snow and ice are different.
We usually don't push or remove ice from sidewalks. We usually treat them with sand to improve traction and walking conditions.
Cantor says when a warm snap causes a quick melt, it's not effective to apply sand onto slush and puddles.
We hope for some of freezing temperatures in the forecast and get it down below zero and stabilize.
Anderson thinks the process could be faster and more inclusive.
Well, I don't see sand on the sidewalks. You can see it on the roads where the cars drive, but how about the people on the sidewalks?
The city says priority 1 and 2 streets and sidewalks are plowed within 36 hours. Priority 3 streets and sidewalks can take up to another 36 hours. Mike Arsenault, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Definitely a little slippery out there, depending where you are on those walks, and other places that you're getting a booter.
Yeah, we
can't win.
That happened to me this morning on my walk-in. More of a shoer, but
yeah.
It's those puddles that have that thin layer of ice, and you step on them, and you just kind of break
Go right through.
Yeah, I went right through my shoe this morning. So we are looking at, I think, a slippery morning tomorrow, particularly because we're looking at a little bit of a melt happening as we get into the evening tonight, and then things really dropping as we get into the overnight hours. I'm going to show you the temperature trend here for the next 12 hours. Again, this is just one forecast model indication, but it gives us a pretty clear picture of where our temperatures are headed. So you can see, I mean, we are around the freezing mark in Winnipeg through most of the afternoon, just below freezing. We'll actually see that temperature rising to our daytime high around 3 degrees by the time we get to midnight tonight. And then over the course of the next 6 hours after that into tomorrow morning, things really dropping off down to -8 by the time we get into the morning hours tomorrow. So like I said earlier, I think this is going to mean that we're going to see some pretty slippery sidewalks tomorrow morning. Probably some slippery highways, particularly north and east of the city into northwestern Ontario because of some of that snowfall that we're also looking at as we get through the overnight hours into Friday. A lot of that, like I've said, through the week has been riding along the jet stream, and we've been on the warm side of that jet stream, which has really helped play into that freeze-thaw cycle that we've seen. This area of high pressure helping to funnel some of that warm, moist Pacific air right into our neck of the woods here. And as those systems really travel along that jet stream path, you can really see how defined that path is as it continues to make its way along the Great Lakes and right into the Greater Toronto area and east into the Maritime provinces. So this is just sort of that river of air pushing some of those systems right into eastern parts of the country. All right, your dog walking forecast. Max and Vera, I don't know if you can see, there's a second dog right there. Thank you, Rob, for sending this picture in. talkback@cbc.ca. Please keep your pictures coming. I'd love to see you guys getting outside, especially with some of the temperatures that we've seen. Temperature tomorrow hangs around -8 in Winnipeg, but what you will really notice is that very strong northwesterly wind, northwest 30 to 50 by the afternoon, shifting out of the north, 20 gusting 40 even by the evening. So we are looking at some pretty gusty winds as we get through the day on Friday. They will start to die off as we get into Saturday. Temperatures around -10 overnight in Westman, -14 in Dauphin, and yes, we are looking at those temperatures starting to drop off as we get into the overnight hours. Winnipeg overnight around +3, then falling close to -30 for northern Manitoba overnight. Bit more sun tomorrow across the north, looking at temperatures around -19 in Thompson by lunchtime. In the south, the remnants of that snow making its way out of northwestern Ontario first thing in the morning, but you'll notice our temperatures really don't go anywhere. Brittany is stuck around -10 throughout the day for your Friday.
Thank you, Riley.
You're welcome.
Police in New Mexico have released new details surrounding the deaths of Oscar-winning actor Gene Hackman and his wife. But the investigators have not determined how the couple may have died in their Santa Fe home. Steve Futterman has the latest.
In New Mexico, law enforcement officials made the shocking discovery. They found the bodies of Gene Hackman and his wife Betsy Arakawa in separate rooms. Near her body were some pills. It appears they may have been dead for several days. Also found dead inside the home one of their 3 dogs. Last night, officials said there was no indication of foul play. But in an affidavit filed today, law enforcement officials said the deaths are suspicious enough to conduct a full search and investigation. An initial examination showed no sign of carbon monoxide leaks or poisoning. The deaths have sent shockwaves throughout Hollywood. Among those reacting, director Francis Ford Coppola. He called Hackman a great actor, inspiring and magnificent in his work and complexity. Gene Hackman's first big break came in 1967, starring in the Warren Beatty film Bonnie and Clyde. 4 years later, he hit the Hollywood jackpot.
All right, Popeye's here!
Playing New York detective Poppy Doyle in The French Connection and winning the first of 2 Oscars. In 1986 came perhaps Hackman's most memorable scene, playing a high school coach of an underdog team in Hoosiers and delivering a classic pregame pep talk.
I don't care what the scoreboard says at the end of the game. In my book, we're going to be winners.
He took on all sorts of different roles, even playing one of Superman's arch rivals, Lex Luthor.
When he fires that, take out your pistols.
In 1992, he won his second Oscar for Unforgiven. Performing was always a dream. Gene Hackman said from the age of 10 he knew he wanted to be an actor. But success wasn't assured. When he was starting out in the mid-1950s, Hackman and another struggling actor, Dustin Hoffman, were voted by fellow acting students the least likely to succeed. They couldn't have been more wrong. Steve Futterman for CBC News, Los Angeles.
It's a definitely amazing sight. We'll have more on that straight ahead. Plus, Riley's back with a last check on our forecast. Stay with us. You're looking at the launch of a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket. It blasted off from the Kennedy Space Center last night. It's sending 2 important payloads on journeys to the moon. The first is an Intuitive Machines lunar lander named Athena. It's set to land near the moon's south pole on March 6th and operate for around 10 Earth days. Intuitive Machines made history last year as the first private company to successfully land on the moon. Also heading there is NASA's Lunar Trailblazer satellite. Its mission is to search for water on the surface. Finding sources of water will be critical for any long-term human lunar presence.
All right, well, we are looking at a bit of a brighter day across the south tomorrow, but windier. Once we see that cold front in that area of low pressure pass, we're looking at temperatures hanging around -8 through the afternoon hours tomorrow in Winnipeg. It'll feel a lot colder, though, with that gusty northwesterly wind, 30 gusting to 40, even stronger into the morning hours. So do take care out there because we are looking at a windy one tomorrow. Winds do back off as we get into Saturday, staying at about seasonal -7 for Saturday. And then we are on the positive side again as we head into next week. A mix of sun and clouds. Clouds do start to build in as we get into Monday. This ahead of another weak disturbance that moves through, bringing us a slight chance of flurries into Tuesday. And temperatures remaining above seasonal for this time of the year as we get into Wednesday and Thursday of next week. Well, picture it. You are on a boat on the Pacific Ocean, and suddenly you're surrounded by thousands of dolphins.
It's a scene that played out in front of a California tour boat captain last week. Have a look at our daily lift. Evan Brodsky was out scouting on the California coast when he witnessed this dolphin lover's fantasy. He's a captain and videographer with Monterey Bay Whale Watch. Now, he estimates around 2,000 dolphins came together.
He was on a small 6-meter inflatable boat when the animals decided to swim up close to the boat. Brodsky says he has never seen a superpod this big before, and some of his coworkers even shed a tear when they caught sight of this.
That is amazing. You know what?
To be in there.
Pretty glad that that was dolphins and not another kind of large mammal that...
Sharks?
Yes, with those inflatable boats.
Yes, I know.
Good for that. Very cool sight. Probably something you'll never see again either.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, have a wonderful night. Stay safe out there on those roads and slippery sidewalks.
Yes,
and we'll see you back here tomorrow.
See ya.